good evening, and welcome to Monday Nights. What is Monday Nights? Monday Nights is couch conversations with the doctors, where true wealth is health. Thank you for stopping by. I want to remind you to share, and share again. For those of you who have been chiming in early to ask if Dr. Mason was going to be here, because you had some questions in reference to some of the colorization he was talking about on last week, Dr. Mason will see us on next week. He is actually out of town tonight, but he misses you all. And he says that on next week, he will grab those questions and ask them for you. So just wanted to remind you of where he was so you could be prepared. As always, we're going to go around our esteemed panel and introduce our host and co-host and our special guest that we have on this evening. And I'm going to start with hey, Yolanda, thank you for chiming in with us. Yolanda Williams is here and she says, good evening to everybody. So thank you to Jessie79 on Instagram from the Black Christian Influencers who is here. I want to say hey to you just as well. We're going to go around as we always do and introduce our esteemed panel and guests. I'm going to start with my coworker who tends to leave us and go and have fun in the sun. But he came to Chicago and was hanging out in you're back, and that's our very own Dr. Douglas Graham. Doug.
Nikki, you're right. The frost hit the ground, and I hit the airport. That's all I can say. I'm Dr. Graham. I spent 30 years practicing in the western suburbs as a specialist, and after I retired, I spent 2 years with a representative in his office in Washington, D.C., and it was an eye-opening experience. I love the work that he does, and I'm here to answer your questions the best I can.
Outstanding. To the doctor that's known on the street as Dr. 100, that means she keeps it real all the time. That's our very Dr. Migraine.
Good evening. Thank you, Nikki and Congressman, for making this space. Thank you to my colleagues. It's always a pleasure. And hello, and thank you for to the community for the opportunity to learn from you and to share time with you.
It
is blocking, it's doing all that stuff. So I want to popcorn or pitch it over to you, Dr. Miller.
Oh, good evening, everybody. We're so happy to be able to join my colleagues tonight. And, I'm a retired internist. I retired in 2019 after practicing 40 years in the Chicago area. And even though I retired from practicing clinical medicine, I am still much interested in healing our community. And, after retiring from practice, I began to learn some things that I didn't know, or I shouldn't say didn't know, I had not focused on. And that is that, as clinicians, oftentimes we are so busy trying to help people to get through the problems and health issues that they encounter, that we probably don't spend an adequate amount of time focusing on prevention as a physician community in general. And so I've learned more about that kind of thing, and that's sort of what I'm trying to do now in my retirement time, is to spend time teaching and working with people and learning myself more about how we can prevent some of these conditions that we so busy trying to control once our patients get them. So that's who I am for now.
All right, Dr. Miller. Dr. Pete.
Great, and thank you so very much. Well, Pete, go right ahead and introduce yourself. Pete is our doctor by day and DJ by night.
Thanks, Nikki. I just want to tell you and the Congressman, thank you for creating this forum for us to communicate with the community. And I'm looking forward to learning from my colleagues. Welcome, Dr. Robinson. So we're looking forward to a great discussion tonight.
Outstanding. I want to say hey to Dorothy Murphy, who's here. And Dorothy, I did get your message, and I'm going to chit chat with you tomorrow in reference to the referrals that you sent over for some prospective guests. I want to say hey to Linda Johnson. She says good evening to everyone. To Tamika Thomas, who's here, to Alexander and Ethan Mitchell, and also Shannon Shelley, and to Deborah. I want to say hey to all of you. To our special guest that's here with us on this evening, who family medicine physician over at Access, one of our huge FQHCs, and also she is taking culinary medicine classes, but she's really a fan of college football. Go right ahead, Dr. Robinson. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Dr. Aisha Robinson. Thank you all for inviting me, Congressman Davis and Dr. Thomas. So I'm really excited to be here tonight. I got my undergraduate degree in health promotion studies and disease prevention from University of Southern California. So I've kind of always been interested in the health promotion, as you mentioned, Dr. Miller. And as I've been practicing for this past year independently as an attending, when we get down to the root of trying to treat this diabetes and high cholesterol and hypertension, my patients are so actively engaged and they're asking me specific, like, what type of fruit? What type of vegetable? Can I eat this? Can I eat that? So I was like, let me get a culinary medicine certification because I want to be able to give my patient accurate answers and really help them out. So I'm trying to see how we can make it easier for them to eat healthier to prevent some of these disease processes. Thank you for having me tonight.
Outstanding, and thank you so much. Ari J. Cox is here with us, and she says good evening to everyone. To Carrie Steele, who is here with us, she also says good evening to everyone with us on this evening. Well, Congressman, to the person who makes it possible to do this each and every Monday night, to the one who reminds us that each and every day that health is wealth, the vanguard of healthcare, our very own Congressman Danny K. Davis.
Well, let me thank you all. As a matter of fact, I was just thinking that no matter how much we talk about and learn about the technical aspects of medical care and health care, that we still are faced with some turbulent times in our country and in our world. And no matter how much we try, we cannot divorce any of them from all of the rest of them. A big health discussion around the globe today is how real is it that Hamas has a big military complex under a hospital in Gaza, and wars taking place just right outside, and both Hamas and Israel are challenged a bit in terms of how much inhumanity can exist where military activity would be taking place that close to a hospital filled with people. And it's just an indication of how complex and how fragile life is, and how important it is to try and have a world that is willing to negotiate some of what is needed, whether it's more attention to health and medicine, or whether the desires of all those wonderful things that we talk about in terms of democracy, access, opportunity, and how those things have to be protected, and how much it takes a combination. We just finished celebrating Veterans Day, and I'm always reminded of a poem that a veteran wrote. He says it's not the politician but the soldier. It says it's really the soldier that protects and have promoted and who give their lives for all of these wonderful things. And those of you who have been blessed to acquire the skills and knowledge to be in the healing and helping profession, where you can help individuals take away pain, you can stop individuals from bleeding, where you can do miracle type things because of the knowledge and skill that you have learned and developed. I commend you and thank you and look forward to our discussion this evening. I had 3 things that I had to choose which one I would be doing. And one actually related to a health policy dinner and discussion that the Ways and Means Committee was having tonight with the CEO of a big health outfit. The other was a policy dinner that the Democratic caucus was having about the status of the world order. But I figured I better be here with the Chicago group and hear about what we've got going on. So thank you all very much. We look forward to it, and peace be with you. I'm ready to listen and learn. Dr. Robinson, thank you and welcome to you. Access is one of the largest ambulatory health organizations in the city of Chicago, county of Cook, state of Illinois, and we appreciate the great work that it does and the role that it plays in our ambulatory healthcare delivery system. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
So if it's possible, I'd like to ask Dr. Robinson a question. With your degree, can you talk about an anti-inflammatory diet? Because inflammation has really made a lot of news recently. I wonder if you might talk about what foods might be good and what foods might not be as good.
So I recently just started taking the course, and we haven't had the module on the anti-inflammatory diet, not yet. But as soon as I get to that point, then I'll be able to have answers for you. But that's part of why I had to pick up this certification, because there's so many questions that go beyond just eat fruits and vegetables and exercise. There's so many layers. So as soon as I have an answer, I'll be following up with you.
Okay.
Yeah. Dr. Doug, speaking of anti-inflammatory diet, the November's Diabetes Awareness Month, and as we know, with diabetes is so prevalent in many communities of color, and I'm just curious regarding with my colleagues, are you seeing post-COVID? Are you seeing more or less cases of diabetes? I'm certainly seeing a lot of uncontrolled diabetics coming in. But Dr. Maya, Dr. Robinson, what's your thought on that?
So Maya, you're muted. We can't hear you. There we go.
So Dr. P, definitely, we're seeing a lot of that. I think part of it is not only diabetes. We're seeing it with cholesterol. We're seeing it with mental and behavioral health needs. We're seeing it with addiction, a lot of dysregulation of structures that we built and put in place, meaning patients. We put in place for ourselves, kind of got dismantled during COVID because of the disconnect with care, because of the trauma we experienced during the part of time where we had to be physically distant, because we talk about social distancing, but we were physically distant, and we're not really, as humans, made to not have the kind of contact, and so our worlds aren't structured like that. A lot of it I'm finding comes from last week we talked about things you do to escape or feel good, or leaning into things that you may be addicted to, and just frankly, food can be addictive. Sugar's addictive, greasy foods can be addictive, and in those things we tell ourselves, oh, I had a hard day, I deserve this. I had a good day, I deserve this. It is the weekend, I deserve this. And we make the space to do that a lot. I've seen an increase in that. I know transparently, I myself, experience that, and I'm sure so many people are. So what does that have to do with diabetes? When we, eat foods that aren't made for our body to process, or we're eating a lot of sweet things or carb-containing things that maybe aren't sweet, noodles, pasta, those type of things. A lot of the things we call comfort foods, that plays into our body's ability to regulate itself, And so that's why I believe I'm seeing it in not only transparently myself, but seeing it in the patients that I work for.
Well, I tell you, I was struck by the question of managing diabetes. I pay a great deal of attention to things that are taking place because of the fact that I have diabetes. I'm a type 2 diabetic, and I guess I've had it for about maybe 25, 30 years. And I've generally done okay in terms of management, although I have a tendency to cheat a little bit from time to time. And I even kind of know I'm cheating when I do relative to diet.
Yeah.
And I had a little episode last week where I went in for my regular checkup and things were looking pretty good. I was shocked at my blood pressure, you know, which was, I was gloating to myself about it. My physician was gloating a little bit about it. Then later on, I got a call from the University of Illinois saying, come to the emergency room. And I'm saying, well, I got to go to the emergency room. Well, it turned out that I love grape juice. I mean, it's some of that stuff that Dr. Mason talks about, how they trap you in terms of your taste buds. Well, that stuff tastes good to me. And I had decided that I'd have a little bottle of it. Usually I get diet stuff. There wasn't any diet stuff around, so I just got it. And bang, it had caused my blood sugars to go up. And I knew exactly what had probably done it. And of course, I went and I ended up having to spend a half a day away from all these things I had to do, because even though I felt like I knew what I had done and what was going on, but I wasn't going to risk not going in and letting the docs check me out and figure out what I needed to do in order to bring it down. And they did, and we did, but it did take a half a day or maybe longer.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the emergency room and I was just amazed at the large number of people who were in the emergency room and the number of small children who were there and the babies who were crying. And so that just gave me another appreciation for the work that all of you do in terms of just being in the emergency room for maybe 7 or 8 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, we need some more docs. We need some more health personnel. We need some more health professionals. And anybody who thinks we don't, they just don't understand what's going on in terms of healthcare delivery and healthcare needs and what we need to do to try and meet those needs. So I thank you again in terms of my personal experience that I just had Friday of last week.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
Well, now, oh, go ahead. Go ahead,
I
Dr.
was
Miller.
as Dr. Pete had talked about the incident of increase in number of patients that he's seeing with diabetes post the pandemic. And obviously I'm not in the clinical arena, but I'm reading and I'm seeing and but in the manifestation of diseases in terms of all those kinds of things, mental health and uh, heart attacks and stroke. How much of this kind of stuff? Because I mean, we've been through some years where we've been basically not normal in terms of how we had to behave and how we related and how we reacted with each other. So this kind of reaction causes us to we can't internalize these things forever. Ultimately we need to get back to what it is that human beings do in order to create some kind of normalcy in terms of how we behave and how we relate to each other. And so some of the things that I think that the modalities and the outlet that people have in terms of expressing themselves, if they don't have a normal outlet, then they will take other pathways. And so, how much of this are you guys that are in active clinical practice are seeing in terms of people just not being able to live that normal life, do those normal kinds of things that is affecting the
Yeah.
underlying healthcare issues?
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you, I was also elated to see how people with behavior problems were being handled and treated and how much care and attention that the security apparatus and the law enforcement and all of that who were taking what I call special care with individuals who were having behavior challenges and as much conversation as we have about that in terms of what law enforcement understands. I was tremendously impressed and appreciative relative to what I saw. And so I commend, and this was at the University of Illinois. And so I commend the emergency staff that was on duty Friday of last week. I don't know what they do other times, but the group that was on duty Friday, they were at the top of their game as far as I'm concerned in terms of what was going on.
I know what I've seen more often is a lot of people who are lost to healthcare. since the beginning of the pandemic. So a lot of people come in with uncontrolled A1Cs, uncontrolled blood pressure. And when I look through their chart, the last time they seen a doctor was in 2019 or the beginning of 2020. So I've definitely seen that. And I am concerned about the people who may lose their insurance, who are able to gain insurance because of the pandemic. So now with that coming to a close, they're going to have to start the process of trying to get the insurance that they were given initially. So I'm kind of see it both ways. Some people were able to get into the healthcare system because of the pandemic, and that may go the opposite way. And some of the people who had insurance, they just stopped coming to the doctor because of the fear of being sick and contacting COVID. So I've definitely seen increases in uncontrolled chronic issues.
Yeah, wow. So want to say good evening to Nellie Purnell King, who is here. Also, Val Talley is here, and he says good evening to everyone, but he has a question. He said, when does pre-diabetes happen? Also, hi to Regina Tyler, who is here with us as well. But what is pre-diabetes and when does it happen?
Dr. Robinson, you
So,
want to
I don't want to, okay.
go?
Oh, well, we have different ways to measure it. One of the ways we measure diabetes is based on A1C, and that's when the sugar attaches to our blood and where the blood cell lives around in our body for 120 days. So we can pretty much see how much sugar has been uncontrolled in your blood and how much your body was able to remove that sugar. And we see how good your body can do that. So based on the A1C number is how we measure pre-diabetes to diabetes. So pre-diabetes is when the A1C number is 5.7 to 6.4, and diabetes is when it's 6.5 or greater. And what pre-diabetes means is you don't have diabetes. Some providers may choose to treat with metformin or some don't, but it doesn't necessarily require medication. But what it is showing is your body is starting to be impacted by your diet and your ability to remove sugar or glucose from your blood level, from your blood vessels. Do you want to add to that, Dr. Maya?
No, that was perfect. Thank you, Dr. Robinson.
Well, the question is, how can you remove those sugars? There is a question that says, how can you remove those sugars or those glucose? How can you remove them?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at it. It's basically one, you can reduce your intake or um, to alleviate your bloodstream from being so overwhelmed by the sugar. So by changing your diet is one. It's a big one that I try to emphasize to patients. I'm trying not to put medicines at the forefront. The other way you can do it is to exercise. So when you work those muscles require energy. So you can use up the sugar that's there. And then of course the other way is we have pharmacological therapy. So that's medications that we use. And I'm a big proponent of it's not a either or, but it might be an and, because sometimes the sugar is so high that it's very, very improbable that by lifestyle modifications or diet and exercise that you're going to be able to do it just by itself. The other way I look at it is, and I may explain it to patients like, look, we may be able to try medications first, then while you work on, because behavior is something else. Like if you're so accustomed to eating whatever you want, to Dr. Maya's point, to rewarding yourself, you're going through a tremendous amount of pressure and stress, and so food has become your drug almost. And so while you may not be addicted to alcohol or drugs, but you're addicted to Twinkies and and a Harold's 3-piece fried hard, extra mild sauce. Now that's neither here nor there. But the point I'm trying to make is, in order to change that behavior, it does take some time. And I just try to stress to patients, look, I don't want, while we're waiting for your behavior to change, that your sugars are going up and up, and as a result of that, more and more inflammation is happening, and we are potentially putting end organs at risk. And those end organs are those critical ones is your brain, your heart, and your kidneys. And so vascular disease is accelerated with people with uncontrolled blood sugars. And so I try to deploy medications right away, but also encourage patients, let's look at your diet, let's look at your environment, meaning what you're eating, how sedentary you are. Are you sitting around watching the football game, which I love watching the football game too, but how can we watch the football game? Maybe have some celery and hummus as opposed to chips and wings. So just helping patients explore other options, because many times, like Dr. Robinson said, our community has not been exposed, and I would say not all, but a large part of our community has been exposed to very high caloric meals. And some of that is historical, right? From the transatlantic slave trade, where our ancestors were really, really challenged in the work that they had to do. So high caloric foods were just sort of passed down to us. Having not to have to be as active, working in fields for 15, 16 hours, and now we have sedentary jobs, and so those high caloric foods are just sitting around in our bloodstream. And so then the beta islet cells in our pancreas is just becoming overwhelmed. And as a result of that, the blood sugar begins to rise. I don't know if anybody else wanted to chime in on that.
Well, Dr. Pete, we have an anonymous question that says, thank you, Dr. Pete. I was told that exercising regularly could really help and to manage my carbs. But is it true that managing your stress and getting sleep and also eating foods that are rich in magnesium can help lower your blood sugar? Also, Dr. Pete, can you use the following, such as ginseng, bay leaves, cayenne pepper, and turmeric or flax seeds, and even ginger to help lower your blood sugars? Flax seeds are disgusting. Okay, go right ahead. You can answer that.
Yeah, I'm gonna let my colleagues chime in on this one. Not all at once.
Right.
Well, Dr. Pete, I'm going to take a pass on that one too, but I want to get back to you about what you said about, diets here in the United States. We're also trained to eat the high profit foods, the salty, sugary snacks. You go to the grocery store, you get the checkout line. On one side, you got the Cokes, and the other side, you got candy bars and snacks. So we're bombarded with these messages to eat the stuff that's going to get us in trouble. So why got to be worried?
Well, let me ask. I've been told that beets are good to eat. I think taste also goes along with this diet business. So what's the deal on beets?
Well, beets are actually somebody, I think Dr. Graham had asked before about anti-inflammatory foods, and beets is one of those uh, vegetable that when we eat it, it has an anti-inflammatory activity to it, so it's good in terms of stopping inflammation. So and so diabetes is an inflammatory disorder, so it does help that, and as well as other kinds of inflammatory problems. Nikki, the flaxseed actually, the flaxseed actually also helps to slow down inflammation. So they might not taste the way you like it, but and I think the whole thing about food that we have to understand is that we have to learn how to fix it in a way and add the different kinds of things that suit our taste, and not really just, I mean, because we've been addicted to sweets. So so we have to get beyond our addiction and start to learn how to prepare things to taste and to be pleasant to our taste, and to learn how to accept other kinds of taste, and with the old understanding that food has a purpose. The purpose of food is to create energy, and it isn't just about having a good time with it. That was not really the purpose that it was created for. And now we do understand that we do eat things because we want to enjoy some things, but in terms of what we do on a regular and daily basis, is that we have to
Yeah.
use that food for the energy that it helps us to produce, and for the prevention in terms of preventing disease processes that will occur if we eat the wrong things, consuming those things that are toxic to our body, consuming those things that cause inflammation. Enough of that is going to cause us to be sick. And now we're going to end up paying a price, as you, Congressman, said that you had to spend a whole half a day because you had a little taste of something that you like to taste. So there's a price for everything that we do when it's not really good for us. So yeah, some things that are good for us may not be so pleasant to the taste, but it's like medicine. I remember when I was a kid, and we had a lot of these colds of various things, and parents had these very remedies or various things that didn't taste well, but they required us to take them in order for us to be able to get beyond whatever was bothering us. So sometimes the taste is not the most important thing, and we have to consider that in our daily task of fueling our body with what we need to fuel it with.
Also, a lot of the medicines that we have are built off a foundation or backbone of some of the things we mentioned earlier: beets, cinnamon, that kind of thing, right? So beets, cinnamon, flaxseed, all those things have been known to lower blood glucose. Beets and flax seeds also lower cholesterol. But what does that mean? Does that mean like I don't take my medicine, I just eat beets and say it's gonna be okay? No. Just like medication, you have to have a certain amount of them on a consistent basis. So going back to what Dr. Robinson is really honing in on with the certification in nutritional medicine, you have to have the right dose, just like a medication, of it consistently over time. So I can't eat beets today and then say, oh, I don't have diabetes anymore, I'm just going to not take my medicine, right? I have to monitor my glucose, see how my holistic nutrition plan aligns with my blood glucose, and then have that conversation with your doctor if long-term kind of continuing medication or managing disease with food as medicine is the best option for you. Either way, to be clear, it's going to be a combination of input, meaning what I'm putting in my body, beets, cinnamon, flaxseed, or medication over time, all those things over time, and consistent input, a combination of input and output, how much I'm active, how much I'm exercising, that kind of thing. Either way, so either way, experiencing glucose intolerance is a life opportunity to change and accept life for the long term. I don't remember what other, I just remember the beets, the flaxseed, and the cinnamon. I don't know what other things they asked about.
Do you remember, Nikki? I can't remember either.
Let me go back to their question / statement, and while I'm looking for it, Dr. Miller, I'm gonna tell you, as you know, I get my pickled beets in at least 3 times a week because I love them, but they're pickled, of course. I love them, but those flax seeds are, yeah.
Well, Nikki, you can. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Dr. Pete.
No. Go ahead, Maya.
You can always take one of the things they do with flaxseed is if you like cookies, You can bake them into your kind of cookie recipe because now you got oatmeal, you got all this other stuff. It doesn't really stand out. The other thing people do with flaxseed is they put it in their smoothies. And it's not the whole flaxseed, it's like a grinded, ground up flaxseed. So, you know,
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
not.
that's wonderful. That's wonderful. What was you about to say, Pete?
No, just that, the other thing that beets is high in nitric acid. I'm sorry, nitric oxide. Sorry, and nitric oxide causes vasodilatation, so it expands the blood vessels, so it helps to lower blood pressure. So many people like it for that reason, also.
Okay, so
So
the
it
rest
sounds
of
to
it,
me like you all are saying that we have to learn to eat to live and not live to eat.
that's
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
As they say where I'm from, period.
That part. So it says ginseng, or he says ginseng, bay leaves, cayenne pepper, turmeric, flax seeds, and ginger.
Yeah.
Is it
So,
true that those things work to aid in lowering blood sugar?
yeah. So I think flaxseed and ginger have been shown to be anti-inflammatory, hence lowering your risk for diabetes. So I think we can agree with that. Um, the um, the other things I don't know about that, and I think sometimes where we can go, sometimes if we're not careful, we hear things on the internet, and I'm not saying that it doesn't work, but the question is, to Dr. Maya's point, how much is required? So if it does work, then how much ginseng should I take? So I would just caution you to kind of attach yourself onto every little thing that somebody is saying on the internet. I would say get the information, write it down, speak to your provider about it, and where there isn't any randomized controlled trial studies, I think it's really hard to put your finger on that. And like Dr. Mason always say, in God we trust, but all else I need to see the data.
Yeah.
So if you
I
can't show me the data, we what we talking about here. Everybody's selling something on the internet. So I'm gonna tell you, that lowers diabetes. Yeah, So I think we just gotta, what makes sense, right? So we're saying, we can say, okay, the flaxseed and the ginger, for the most part, that lowers inflammation. Diabetes is an inflammatory disease process. Okay, so now that makes sense. Now, but then the question becomes, to Dr. Myers' point, do I stop taking my medicine because I'm drinking ginger water all day? Absolutely not, because we don't know. We don't know how much ginger you need to take. Should you be, sleeping with the ginger? Should you be eating the ginger? We don't know. But what we know is, in general, ginger is not a bad thing for you. You can take that. It will likely help you. But you know what will also likely help you is not to consume
eat a
calories
eat a
consistently.
payday. Eat a payday. Not
Yeah.
to eat
That
a
ain't
treat.
going, that ain't gonna help you. So there's so many other what I call low hanging fruit that we do, and I really encourage my patients. I say, hey, that's great. You're gonna go and get a case of the flax seeds, but do me a favor, stop eating paydays all day long, or stop. So there's low hanging fruit, and we have to have real honest conversations with your provider and your patients, real honest conversations, and then say, okay, the lowest hanging fruit that you can do that's probably going to give you the biggest bang is this, whatever this is. Every person is different, right? So to somebody's point that somebody mentioned about lack of sleep, well, lack of sleep is a stressor. That stressor is going to produce
Yes.
stress hormones. Those stress hormones are going to flood the blood system with sugar. So yes, sleep is very important. Stress reduction is very important. So I would look at those things, look at where your lowest hanging fruit is, where can I get more bang for my buck, and then always have a discussion with your provider. And then what I love now is we're having these nice discussions about care teams. So even if your provider is too busy, have a talk with the nurse. Say, hey, I want to talk to the nurse that's attached to my care team, and they'll give you some really good information too.
And I'd like to share with the gentleman who is listening who sent that question. Please have that conversation with your doctor if those are things that you want to take as well. Take that whole list you sent to us to the doctor with you, and don't take all that stuff together because we don't know what else it might do to you. I mean, everything can be healthy, but if you're mixing apple cider vinegar and turmeric and flax seeds together, I don't know if your stomach can actually handle all of that. I mean, there's a method to my
it might be all good. It might be all good for you, but maybe it may not go down right.
Right. It's a method to my madness when I tell you about those flax seeds. So just be careful when you take all of that stuff together. Just take that list right on to your doctor, and you guys go through it together and see what your doctor may say. But thank you for sending it. It was interesting. So thank you so very much. I want to say hey to Sister Bonnie, who is here, and Regina Tyler, who is here. Dorothy Murray says, love the response that Dr. Maya had. Nellie Purnell King says, will furosemide help bring the blood pressure down and lower your blood sugar? Furosemide.
So furosemide is a diuretic. It helps you urinate, and it's typically prescribed for heart failure patients, but not all the time. So it definitely does bring down your blood pressure, but it's not typically related to your blood sugar.
Okay. Thank you. And to the gentleman who just sent the text message of the sitting on his desk, the paydays and the M&Ms, as Dr. Pete said, just that's that low-hanging fruit. So those M&M peanuts you got sitting on your desk and that payday, it ain't gonna help you. Or just have a piece of it. Or, don't over, if you're not a diabetic, still have a piece of it. Read the back of the package. When you eat a whole candy bar, know that you have overeaten, because the candy bar will tell you it's like 3 servings or something. So you've overeaten. So it lets you know that your body can't tolerate all of that. So like cut it in half or take a little piece. But yeah, and don't eat all the M&Ms in the little package because you still overeaten. It may tell you it's 2 or 3 servings. So read the back of that package. Thank you so much. Our next question is, if you are a diabetic and you are prescribed insulin, at one point in time, I was on pork and beef insulin, and now I'm on 70/30, but I want off. Is it possible to come off insulin at any time? That's a good question.
Yeah. Without having the specifics of her situation, the A1C levels, anything's possible. I will say, in terms of percentages, if I probably will see less than 15% of my patients are able to come off of insulin. It does require a tremendous disciplined lifestyle. So it does mean a really 180-degree shift in what you were previously doing. And so I just believe in complete transparency. So I don't try to sugarcoat it for them. I let them know whatever you were doing to head in this direction, you got to go 180 degrees in the other direction. And so that might mean right down to being very meticulous about everything that you consume, having a log of all that you consume so that you have an idea if I'm headed in the right direction or not. So if you're checking your blood sugars and you see, okay, my blood sugars is headed down. So all you got to do is say, what caused that result? Well, let me look at my last few days and what I consumed. Repeat that. So if your blood sugars are headed down, what did I do? Oh, I was eating yogurt and flaxseed in the morning. I was making a salad for lunch. I went to the gym for 30 minutes 3 days a week. Repeat the activity that caused the result that you want. And then if you can do that consistently, so not like Dr. Meyer said, not a one-off, not a okay, I ate well for 2 days. No, the consistency is the key. You can do that consistently. I've seen those patients really turn things around, and you look up and A1Cs have come down, and we're able to titrate down on the insulin. I don't believe in just taking it off altogether, just kind of titrate down. And then once you do that, we can kind of start titrating up on pills. So if we go down on the insulin, your A1C is coming down. We come down on the insulin, go up on the pills, come down some more on the insulin, go up on the pills, and then eventually we can take the insulin off. Again, that's not everybody. I would tell you to do that in concert with your doctor and your care team. Let them know I want off of the insulin. And most importantly, I always say, not that you want off. Yeah, you want off, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes. So that means I'm willing to go to the gym 4 or 5 days a week. I'm willing to make a really concerted effort on my diet and really meal prep and things like that. I don't know, Dr. Robinson, you want to chime in on that?
Yes. And I just wanted to add one clarification. I mentioned the furosemide is most commonly seen with heart failure, but that's not the only reason. Sometimes if you have swelling in your legs or kidney issues or multiple reasons. So I just wanted to make that clear. But yes, I've definitely seen patients taking off insulin. As Dr. P said, they're titrated slowly, but those are patients who made the decision. They didn't want to take insulin anymore, so they changed their diet. You know, I've had patients who didn't drink water at all. They only drank pop or soda for some people. And just taking that soda down to once a day or once every other day, their blood sugar will come down tremendously. They love chips, they love candy. Just taking one of those things out their diet or decreasing the amount, replacing it with healthier options. I've seen patients titrated off the insulin, because what diabetes is a chronic issue that comes from type 2 diabetes is a chronic issue that comes from diet and exercise. Your body just becomes overwhelmed with all the sugar that you're intaking. So if you stop putting so much sugar in, your body can kind of deal with what you are inputting. So that's absolutely an option. That's absolutely a goal you can reach if you make the changes in your life with what you're eating and exercising. I've definitely seen it done.
I just want to add just one thing. It's important to know what kind of diabetic you are in terms of having, if you're type 2 diabetic, and that is possible. Type 1 diabetes is not as likely that you're going to be able to come off of the insulin. So that's important for you to know.
Outstanding. Well, these are going to be our last 2 questions of the evening because our time is drawing very, very near. So one question I think is a quick question, and they asked, Dr. Robinson, you spoke in reference to soda. Does diet sodas count?
So, something that I've been going over with my patients is looking at the food label. So sometimes it shows you how many carbs is in what you're eating, how much sodium is in what you're eating. And part of what I have learned so far with our culinary medicine is sometimes what's looked at as the healthy option, if you compare the 2 labels, it isn't really that healthy. So with diet soda, from what I've seen, it's not as healthy if you're actually trying to get off the medication for diabetes. But it is an alternative if you just have to have it. But when we're talking about getting you off the medication and changing your life around, we just want to decrease it as much as you would regular soda.
All right, outstanding. Well, I guess we're going to add one really quick question because David Johnson just chimed in and he said, can you have someone to speak about the foods that we can consume? What is better, breakfast or lunch? We've been eating like this for years to save money. can you point out a few other options as far as breakfast and or lunch? Mr. Johnson, can you ask? I want to ask you a question. Is this in reference to a diabetic breakfast and or lunch, or just any person who's eating breakfast and or lunch? If you toss that in the chat real quick, we'll try to grab that question for you. But Dr. Pete, there was a question that specifically came to you from our team over at the core center who is working. But our team asked a question. They said it's been a while since we've heard anybody speak in reference to pork or beef insulin. Since the person just made that statement, what's the difference? Can you share with the community what's the difference between pork and beef, and why would that be prescribed to a patient?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with a pork insulin versus a beef insulin. I don't know if any of my colleagues are. Um, yeah, I'm not familiar with that as much. I will touch base on the breakfast lunch piece, and that is whatever you do, if you can add fiber to that meal, the more fiber you add to a meal, the lower your surge in blood sugar. So if you have eggs, for instance, if you can put spinach in eggs, even though eggs is actually low in calories, but just if you can add fiber, it lowers the surge in blood sugar. So even if you had a meal, eat if in terms of the order that you should eat the fiber first, so some green vegetable first, eat the protein second, and then eat the carbohydrate. So let's take a typical breakfast. Let's say you had turkey sausage, eggs, and then pancakes. Well, the last thing you want to eat is the pancakes, and if you can, not even have the pancakes. That would be ideal. But if it's on your plate and somebody snuck it on your plate, let's say for instance, okay, then that should be the last thing you eat. What you want to eat is your green vegetable first, because it gets in your system and it prevents the surge in blood sugar. So then eat the protein source, that's the turkey sausage, and then eggs. Also, eggs are high in protein. Um, and then eat whatever carbohydrate, potatoes or pancakes or something like that. So that would be my suggestion for any meal, to be honest, is to say vegetable protein should be your primary focus on that meal, and because that'll keep the nutrients high, keep the sugar low, and it will prevent any surge in the sugar. Because the other thing is you want to avoid not just how high, but how fast the sugar goes up. So that's the other thing you want to avoid. Now, if I don't know, any of my colleagues still want to tackle the insulin beef.
Yeah, well, I don't, again, I don't know what's been going on over the past 2 or 3 years, but the general thing had been availability, and the most available insulin had been beef insulin. And when there was a shortage, then pork insulin became uh, used more. And I don't think it had to do with which one was effective any more than the other one. It's just the processing and the growing and how you collected it. I think it was that more so than anything. One was probably just as effective as the other one, but it was just the process of how the industry collect the insulin. I don't think there was anything else, any other significant difference in it.
Well, let me ask this question. When I was a kid, they used to tell us it ain't always what you do, but it's the way how you do it. It ain't always what you eat, but it's the way how you chew it. What does that mean?
Well, I think it speaks for itself. It's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, Congressman, that's exactly what this is. It really does mean, how your ability to consume certain food groups will impact how much of your bloodstream will be filled with sugar. So that's a great saying. I've never heard of it, but it's really I guess it's very self-explanatory.
Well, you know, I remember as a kid, and I did hear that, as Congressman said, I heard that same, but it was about don't rush, because when you rush, you're going to eat, you're going to overdo it. Yeah, chew it slowly, swallow it slowly, and you consume less. And that, I think that was the the purpose of that saying is don't, if you know, don't just gobble everything thing down. Take your time, chew it, and more than likely you're going to consume less of it.
And I
Dr.
guess I've learned one thing, and that is there is a method to the salad coming first in terms of meal service. That somebody figured that out, and you get the salad first. There's a reason for it. It's not necessarily just to whet your appetite, but it's to help with the circulation and digestion and all of that stuff. Pretty cool. Yeah.
Well, this has been an outstanding conversation. And as always, we're going to go around and you share with us your until next Monday, starting with Doug. Doug, your until next Monday.
Well, I just want to state that I think the grocery store has become an unsafe place. You're okay if you go to the fruits and vegetables. You're okay if you go to the butcher shop. When you start going down the aisles, you'll see that they started to put things in the aisles. And they're out in the aisles, and they're things to cause impulse buys. And more often than not, they're going to be high calorie, low value foods. You get to the checkout stand, on one side, you got the carbonated drinks, on the other side, you got the candies and the snacks. It's designed to have you spend your last dollar on that stuff, and none of that stuff is going to be good for you. So all I can say is be careful when you go there. Keep your hand on your wallet, on your purse. Make the right choices.
Outstanding. And thank you, Doug. David Johnson says, great answer. And Nellie Purnell King is laughing at the congressman's comment. So, Dr. Miller, you're until next Monday.
Let's go. I'm gonna chime in on Doug's. The grocery store is in the business of making money. It's not about your health. It's about creating revenue for itself. So we have to remember that when we go to the grocery store, we have to be concerned about our health, and therefore, you know, we have to restrain ourselves. But their emphasis and their desire is to get every penny of their money out of their pocket that they can. And how do they do that? By appealing to your whatever lust that you have, and that's what we see as those lusty things that make us buy when we shouldn't be buying. So that's their business. So we have to always keep that in mind.
So, Costco, please move all of those chocolate covered almonds from by the door, right by
Now
the register. You have those
they ain't
chocolate
gonna do it.
almonds.
They ain't
That's
gonna
just
do it.
not a good place for
They
them.
ain't gonna do it.
Dr. Robinson, Aisha, you're until next Monday.
So until next Monday. I assume is this the like one last teaching point or what is this?
Yes, it is.
Oh, just you can do it. Like if you just make one little change in your lifestyle, you do not have to jump in and do everything tomorrow. Something that I always go over with my patients is just eat less of the bad or unhealthy foods, and it makes a difference. So if you drink pop every single day, multiple times a day, just try to cut it down into half, and you'll see how much better you feel. You'll see a difference in your numbers, and you'll see that you're able to live your life without all those things that you thought you needed. So just go slowly and you'll see that you can do it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Dr. Pete, you're until next Monday.
So, Nikki, this Dr. Robinson comment made me think about last week. I saw one of my patients, and I went in the room, and they had two Mystic grape juices sitting on the counter. So I went through the whole visit. I went through the labs and did the whole thing, and then I said, "Now, by the way, I see you have two Mystic pods," and I just turned them around and looked at the sugar content, and we just went over it. It's an opportunity. It's a teaching moment. And so I said, "I'm just curious, why two? Why'd you buy two?" I said, "Oh, Doc, it was 2 for 1." And I said, boy, did they get us. They got, I said, they got you. And then so I said, do you mind if I have one? So I took it from him. He said, oh yeah, sure. You can have one, Doc. I said, okay. I said, now, I said, now, you know, I'm not going to drink this, right? You know, I'm keeping you from drinking it. So I said, so I took it and gave it to one of my nurses, and come to find out that nurse gave it to another nurse that gave it to another. I don't know who actually drunk that other mystic, but the point is we've got to help. I think my to next Monday is we got to help each other, be around people that are mimicking the behavior that you're looking for. I'm reading this book by James Clearing called Atomic Habits. And it says that we're affected by the close, the many, and the powerful. And so when you're trying to change a habit, you're influenced by those three groups of people. And so I would change the people that you're hanging around. I'm gonna tell you, if they buy mystics and things, and you know, you got to change your group. And I know they might be the funnest friends in the world, but you got to be around some more fit friends that are going to the gym, that are trying to be healthy. And it doesn't mean you're perfect. To Dr. Robertson's point, you're not perfect, but you're just making incremental steps, right? So it's not two mystics, it's one. Okay, it's not a mystic every day; it's a mystic every other day. So just make those steps, and also get good sleep and lower your stress. Be around fun and happy people and laugh. Those will lower those cortisol and stress levels. And when that happens, you have less sugar in the bloodstream.
Outstanding, Dr. P. Outstanding. Well, of course, you know, I usually don't have it until next Monday, but I do want to share a few things with you right now. We are entering those seasons when it is very important to make sure that you get your vaccines. So just want to remind you, don't forget about your flu vaccine if that's something that you should do, or if you're at a certain point or at a certain age. Let's get your flu vaccines. Your pneumonia vaccine, very important for those people who have comorbidities, even like myself with asthma. There are certain vaccines that we should make sure that we're on top of. Of course, you know, do not want to forget your trendy COVID vaccine. So if you haven't gotten your updated vaccine, I want you to look into that just as well. And for those people, Pete, correct me if I am wrong, if you are 49 or over or 50 or over, make sure you look into your shingles vaccine. That's very important. We had a conversation about that and how that can have so much residual pain and cause so many problems. So
Yeah,
make
50,
sure
50.
50, yes. So make sure that you get all your updated vaccines that are needed. And if you're 10 years out or more and you've thought about that you may need that tetanus vaccine, don't forget about that just as well. Especially if you're at home trying to do your own home improvement. That is important to have. Congressman, take us home.
Well, you know, this has been so intriguing. And I would just add, in the quest to be healthy, let us not forget our social role, obligations, and expectations. Because every time I define health and healthy and what it means, that is a part of it. And I think as we view the environment now, there are some things taking place that we need to be very, very aware of and know the role that we play in them. But I also enjoyed what I've heard so much until I wonder if we could devote a time to how do we teach our children some of these concepts as they are growing up. I'm amazed at the things that I recall that were told to us when I was a child. And I still remember those things. And I remember some of them better than I remember what might have been told to me yesterday. I think maybe the mind is really in great shape during those young years. I am amazed at what I remember from when I was 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 years old and 9 and 10. Things that people said, things that people did, who said them, and how they said them, and all of that stuff. Sometimes it just kind of comes back, and I remember it. So I guess if we could have a time when we would just ask ourselves, what do I tell my children? So as they evolve and as they grow up, that maybe some of this may remain with them. And even though it may not look like it, but the things that we tell them might help them to become better adults. And maybe we increase the road to health status change. Because I tell you, much of what I see in terms of obesity in the community where I live, it's absolutely off the chart. I mean, I see people walking down the street and they can hardly move. I may be faster than they are, and I had that sciatic nerve piece at one time. So I know what it's like, Dr. Miller. I had it in 1979. I mean, I remember everything about it, even going to Rush Presbyterian St. Luke's and how great it was. The guy who was the hospital administrator, one of them, was a friend of mine. And he said, let's have lunch while we're waiting for a bed. And I wanted that lunch to be over. So I was so glad to get from sitting down to getting in that bed until I couldn't imagine what it would be. So I have a little empathy with you. But again, thank you all so much. It's been a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I would like to have that discussion on how do we somehow transfer some of this into the minds of our children as they're growing up. So have a wonderful evening, and we hope to see you next week. Thank you. Thank you so much.